This is DW News Africa. Coming up on the program, how are African films faring on the big stage? With Berlin's annual film showcase back again, we hear from some of the filmmakers making waves on the festival circuit with a striking production from the heart of Nigeria. Also coming up on the show, Unrest grips Senegal after a wave of student protests. DW meets young people angry over unpaid financial aid in Dakar. I'm Tomi Oladipo. Welcome to the program. This week, cinema's spotlight turns here to Berlin as the city hosts its annual film festival. Several African films are in the Berlinale lineup, some making their world premieres, others, like the Nigerian feature Lady, being screened for the first time in Europe. Now, Lady is a feature film debut for director Oladipo, and it follows a female taxi driver with big dreams as she navigates the bustling city of Lagos until a reunion with a childhood friend drives her ideas of freedom in an unexpected direction. Right, let's welcome to DW News Africa, Oladipo, the director and scriptwriter of Lady, and Amanda Oru, one of the lead figures in the film who took the character of Pinky, right? Welcome to DW News Africa. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Welcome to Berlin as well. You're here premiering at the Berlinale. First of all, Olive, let me start with you. This is an intense film. It features a woman taxi driver. It focuses on sex work or sex workers. It goes right into the heart of Lagos. Could you sum up what it is you were trying to bring out in this film?
Yeah, I can. This film, Lady, is a love letter to Lagos and to the women of Lagos. Because it's my debut film, I wanted to make a film about where I was born and raised and go back home. I wanted to tell a story from the inside of Lagos that can feel both intimate but also mythic, to really lean into the contemporary Lagos, the modern Lagos, this emerging, dynamic young city, and to center women in that storytelling, and particularly women who refuse to disappear. You know, there's a lot of shame around sex work in Nigeria, and I think it's a reflection of a lot of shame around sexuality for women. And so to really front and center sex workers and a female taxi driver and to put them on the stage was something that felt like it needed to happen in a story about Lagos and my debut.
Yeah, we see the character Lady who sort of holds her own in this male-dominated environment. Amanda, you play the character of Pinky, who's a sex worker. And we see this film is sort of rich. It brings out Lagos in its rawness, in its vibrance. I'm just wondering, how did that environment help you bring out the character in terms of, how did it influence your performance?
First and foremost, I was born in Lagos, raised in Lagos, and living in Lagos is no small feat, like the hustle and bustle, the chaos. So playing Pinky, I had to just channel all of that experience into Pinky, a woman who is navigating, you know, the chaos in Lagos, trying to find her food, trying to survive, trying to live, trying to make impossible decisions or choices with the little that she has. And in Lagos, nobody gives you anything. You have to work for everything. You know, it's just the very little that you have, you make big out of it. So I channeled all of that, you know, experience and personal life also into playing Pinky, and that helped me channel her struggles and her quest to survive, basically.
Right. Yeah. Olive, we see these sex workers in this film. The way you've covered it's a bit more nuanced than the typical way sex workers are covered in Nigerian films.
So.
I'm just wondering, was that deliberate? We usually see these so-called runs girls as a kind of almost cliched way they're covered. I was just wondering if that was deliberate for you.
It was. I mean, to my point of telling a story about women who refuse to disappear and to have them be seen, not be explained or validated or redeemed, they're complex. You know, they're, as Amanda said, everyone does a little with a lot in Lagos. And I think particularly in my research, I found that all the sex workers I met, all of them, were coming from difficult economic conditions and were making calculated choices about agency, about their financial situation, sometimes about supporting their families. And that was what had led them to sex work. And I hadn't seen that lens on the work. Again, it's so much shame. It's like women of the night. And growing up in Lagos, there's a lot of that conversation. But it's like, who are these women? And not only their economic choices, but what makes them laugh, what makes them sad, what makes them bond, you know? Like, these are people. And there was just so much freedom as well in the community that I found in a way that, for me, was surprising. It's almost like they had made the most taboo choice. And once you make that, then there's a new space that opens out for you. And they found a way to create a bond and protect themselves. I think the film is also very much about women caring for each other when the system has abandoned you. And there's actually a lot that can happen in these spaces. So it's about centering that.
Interesting. Amanda, just wondering what it was like working with Olive, especially compared to the kind of work you'd done before in your career.
I don't know if you have all the time, because you told me we have, I can go on and on and on. I could spend hours talking about this woman here. I've been acting 10 years, right? And it felt like I was learning acting again, working with her. She trained me all over again. She made me understand some things that I thought I knew, and she was so present. Like, Olive is so present, so detailed, emotionally intelligent. She would see beyond words. She just look at you and know something is off, and she'll come to you, okay, let's work it out, And sometimes when I'm playing Pinky and I'm maybe deviating somewhat, she's like, okay, I hear you, I see you, but Pinky's doing this right now. What do you think? Oh, okay, and I come back, So, and she's not just about the film's aesthetics, no, she's more about the performance, how true, believable, vulnerable, authentic, your performance for each scene, is. And it's not just one person, she's focused on everybody. So that energy ran through Pinky, Lady, Lolo, every other person, even the background actors, if she was that deep about it, And I must say that working with her has been incredible. And I'm a better actor working with Olive, yeah. I must say that.
And Amanda makes it easy because she's so talented. I mean, it's your heart, There's just a fullness of heart and an openness to experience, and you also take in energy and then you perform, And so it's really a wonder when you find humans who are that open and so willing, and who can trust you and you trust each other, so that you can have these conversations and mold together. So I really feel this was co-authored work in this way, not just with Amanda, but with all the women. And that's why when we won the Sundance Ensemble Cast, that meant so much, because throughout the process, it was always about this. It's, let's do it together. Let's find the rhythm. Let's feed off one another. And yeah, it's just magical.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, you talk about bringing out all these things, both from the actors, the environment as well. One other interesting thing was soundtrack-wise. I noticed this. It's very music-rich as well. What was that about?
Yeah. I mean, Afrobeat is Lagos. Like, you can't separate one from the other. We're always listening to music. Lady's a taxi driver. The radio is on all the time. It's also a film that happens in the nightlife of Lagos, which is also such a big part of our culture. And so I thought that would be a brilliant way to tell a story about the history of Afrobeat as well. We have Fela Kuti, who is the father of Afrobeat, and he's in the film. Sade's in the film, speaking to the Nigerian diaspora. And then we have lots of young, incredible, contemporary, emerging Nigerian musicians as well. And the thought was, there's all this music and it's also storytelling. How do we almost reveal the life that's happening that inspires this music? It doesn't come from nowhere, right?
No,
it's like it's from real lived experience. And so we had a lot of fun in figuring out what tracks should go where, and kind of, it's like mutual storytelling happening between the music and, the visual language.
Interesting. You mentioned Sundance earlier, where you premiered. Unfortunately, Amanda, you and much of the rest of the crew couldn't make it to the film premiere. What happened?
I would say policy happened, and whether we like it or not, we have to respect policy. Yeah, and
just to make it clear, you did not get your US visas.
we didn't get the visas because at the moment there's a visa restriction on Nigerians, on Nigeria as a whole. So the production tried everything possible to make it happen. My director did all she could, humanly possible, to make it happen, but it is what it is.
We worked so hard to raise funds, you know, to take a whole cast of 7 women to Sundance is hard work.
Yeah, it is.
But everyone was committed, and then the visa ban happened last minute.
Right.
And
Last
then
minute,
the
like
cast couldn't come. And just to bring it back to the film, it's interesting because so much of the film is about movement, you know, and lady wanting to move, and the women are talking about where they would go and what happens when Africans leave the continent. And so it was really like frustrating, but also weirdly surreal to then see reality affect our story in this way.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're here in Berlin, you're here to premiere, European premiere at the Berlinale. And Amanda Oru and Olive Mosu, congratulations. Welcome to Berlin, and I wish you all the best as you take this film forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Senegal is grappling with unrest after a wave of protests by students over unpaid financial aid. Now, the situation has worsened this week after a student died during the chaos in the capital, Dakar. Prosecutors say Abdoulaye Ba fell from a dormitory as police clashed with students, but classmates insist officers beat him to death. The government has admitted there was police misconduct, and anger is growing among the youth, as our correspondent Sira Tirij reports from Dakar.
Social media footage that sent shockwaves through Senegal. The day protests at the Cheikh Anta Diop University in the capital Dakar turned deadly. Authorities closed the campus and sent thousands of students home, their studies on hold, their futures uncertain. Political science student Bourama Sonko hasn't received a scholarship in months. He was hoping to finish his degree this summer. Instead, he's back in his childhood home.
This is the room. We share it with 2 cousins and my uncle. Up there, that's my suitcase. And here are the books, which I used to prepare for my classes.
He is eager to start his career and support his family.
I'm very proud. The whole family's proud, but sadly, we don't know what will happen next.
Bourama is still in shock after the violence he experienced on campus. He says he was in his dorm when police stormed the building.
There were no protests, no stone throwing, nothing. Everybody stayed inside. We can't understand how the security forces could come and attack the students violently, some of them as young as 16. The way they burst in, it felt like they were dealing with criminals, which was not the case. These were students who were unhappy because the state owes them money.
Bourama was treated in hospital for a dislocated shoulder. He says his vision is still blurred. Rights groups in Senegal say the police used disproportionate force. The government ordered an inquiry, but for many students that's not enough. They say they helped the government get to power and now feel disappointed and betrayed. Ali Cisse is a master's student in public law. He says he was beaten by 5 police officers. Like Bourama, he was in his dorm. He shows his friends videos of his injuries. 3 years ago, he was part of the protests that helped get the current government elected. Back then, President Diomaye Faye and Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko promised to fight corruption and create better opportunities for young people.
The students are Senegal. The campus is Senegal in miniature. So it's the students who carried this struggle and brought it all across the country. To spread this ideology, which at the time we called the ideology of patriotism. We were promised better living conditions for students, in the teaching framework as well as socially. But we only see the opposite.
Senegal's economy is under strain, and young people who make up 3/4 of the population are bearing the cost. For many students, the government that once inspired hope now offers only uncertainty.
We're not asking for work, nor for money. All we want is solid institutions and proper reforms that are respected. And those who are in charge need to keep their campaign promises. We don't know where to go anymore. We don't know who to trust. Before we believed, now we hesitate. That is the problem.
Just 2 of the students who don't know when they'll be able to finish their degrees. During the last protests, their campus remained closed for nearly 9 months.
Let's speak now to Chris Ogunmodade, analyst and consultant in Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for joining us, Chris. Is it a surprise that things have got to this point in Senegal?
No, not at all. This is a country that, in terms of its macroeconomics, has been growing steadily for some time, for close to a decade now, but those macroeconomic gains haven't trickled down to the people. Incomes have barely edged up. Public services, the quality of public services have declined. And there's been lots of political tension, as viewers may or may not be aware, over the last couple of years. In the last administration, the Macky Sall administration, fortunately, there was a peaceful transfer of power to the current administration of President Diomaye Faye, who promised so much on the campaign trail. He promised to tackle corruption, improve the economy to make sure that those macroeconomic gains were realized by the people, and to improve the quality of political institutions. By and large, he has struggled to do that. Most of the Senegalese people don't believe that he has realized the promises of what he talked about on the campaign trail. And so the protest at the university that led up to the death of a student was ultimately not that surprising, at least to me.
One of the things that would like to just check in on what's changed. The police intervention at this Sheikh Anta Diop University, how does that compare to how the previous administration would have responded to this kind of situation?
Well, on some level, there was an extensive, I would say, actually, degree of caution, considerably compared with the past. In Senegal is a country that's generally regarded as, stable, quote unquote, and it's regarded as, the armed forces, for instance, stay within their constitutional limits. But I've always felt like that framing, while generally true, ignores the significant amount of repression that actually happens by the non-military security forces in the country, who are known to, arbitrarily arrest people, torture them, and things of that nature. So there was a lot less of that in this instance, at least initially. What happened was when the protest started to escalate, and then there were allegations that the police beat up several students, including the student Abdoulaye Ba, who died, who a student group alleged was beaten by the police. Now, the Senegalese authorities say that's not what happened, that he jumped from the 4th floor of a building while students were being chased. Whether that is true or not, I suppose an investigation would clarify that, but those are the competing versions of what happened. So to answer the question, yes, to a certain degree, there was some restraint by the security forces, but that only goes so far.
And to the issue itself, the issue with the financial aid and just the government being able to deliver, to what extent can this current crisis? I mean, you've touched on it before, but to what extent can we blame this current crisis on what was inherited from the previous administration?
For sure, Senegal's educational institutions have had financial troubles dating back decades, really. So there's plenty of blame to go around to several administrations, but ultimately the question many Senegalese are asking is, how far do you go? This government campaigned on fixing, among other things, the country's educational institutions, making them more fit for the modern world and the modern economy. And thus many young Senegalese and even many older folks voted for them because they had been to these universities, their children had been to these universities, and they wanted to see them do better and produce good quality students who can compete in the modern economy. So that's why they voted for them, and they expected, it's been nearly 2 years, actually. It will be 2 years in April that this government has come on board. Many Senegalese feel, well, 2 years is a significant amount of time for things to have turned around, and the fact that, in their view, the situation in the universities and across society more generally hasn't turned around. That's why we saw the protests.
And also to mention that President Faye himself is fairly young, and that would have appealed as well. So how has he failed to sort of keep this relationship going and lose the sort of goodwill that brought him in the first place?
Absolutely. That's a very important question. In my mind, it's two things mainly. This government, there's been a mismatch between the rhetoric it deployed on the campaign trail and its ability to actually deliver on those promises, on the pledges it made on the campaign trail. That's one of the problems. And then the other of the problems, I would say it's even that is twofold. There's been the difficult international environment. So much has happened since the government came on board. There's been President Trump has come back into power. The extent of Senegal's debt has been revealed to be much worse than it's been. So internationally, zoning into the domestic front, there's been so many challenges. And then the government has struggled to communicate the extent of those challenges and how they link to domestic problems. So the expectations on the part of the Senegalese people is very much still intact because their living and material conditions haven't really improved. And the government, by and large, has struggled to meet those expectations. And the government, because of its poor communication, is viewed as out of touch by many Senegalese people. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention the sort of challenges in government, namely the confrontation between the president and the prime minister, who were and somewhat still are political allies, but there's been growing pains between them because they're relatively young men who've never really held extensive political office for a long period of time. So there's been a lot of on-the-job training for the both of them.
Okay. We'll keep an eye and see how things unfold in going forward. But Chris Ogunmodede, as always, thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much.
Institutions in Britain and elsewhere are gradually returning artifacts looted during the colonial era to Nigeria. But there are fears the very craft behind the Benin bronzes is under threat. The process of casting is hazardous and labor-intensive, and the skills once passed down through generations are fading as fewer young people take up the tradition.
Ebere Chukwudi's work is like going back in a time machine. She practices the ancient craft of bronze casting. The 23-year-old says she is committed to her passion.
I get to see where I express myself. And yeah, definitely, I see myself taking it further.
This is a craft handed down from generation to generation. But young bronze casters like Chukwudi and Kelly Omadamwe are few and far between. From his workshop in Benin, Omadamwe says the rising cost of raw materials doesn't make the craft profitable anymore.
If you see that your predecessors made a very, very good standard living off their practice, of course you would want to do it. So that hasn't been in place and causing low interest with the next generation.
The craft's plight has been brought into the spotlight with the return of the Benin bronzes, which were taken from what's now Nigeria by British troops in 1897. They're some of Africa's finest heritage objects, as Westy Harmer knows. He learned bronze casting from his father. He's one of the few master casters left. But Ihama sees the pipeline of young casters drying up as they leave in search of better paid jobs.
Many of our children are traveling, or many of them are going abroad. Some are going to any neighboring country to look for their greener pasture because there is no funding.
And so a craft that requires a lot of time and dedication is slowly dying out. And an area once filled with the smell of molten metal is now filled with shops and bars.
That's it for now, but be sure to check out our other stories on our website and social media. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.